What life was really like for slaves in ancient Rome. Imagine this. You wake up in Rome. The year is 100 CE. The air is filled with the smell of bread, the sound of sandals on stone streets. But then, you notice something startling. 1 out of every 3 people around you is a slave. What did it mean to live in a world where human beings were considered things? And here's the surprise. Despite the cruelty, some slaves found ways to buy freedom or even earn respect, but not in the way you might think. In this video, we'll explore 3 things. 1. The harsh reality of absolute power in Rome. 2. The cracks in the system that gave slaves a chance through family, money, and dignity. 3. And finally, the timeless lesson Rome still whispers to us today about power, freedom, and resilience. So let me ask you, if you were there, would you survive, or would you fight back in your own way? Let's step into ancient Rome together and see. 1. Power without limits? The harsh reality of Roman slavery. Picture this. You're walking into a Roman villa on a warm summer morning. The marble floors are cool underfoot, the walls painted with bright colors, the air heavy with the smell of olive oil and wine. Everything feels luxurious until your eyes fall on the people making this world possible. They are not guests, they are slaves. In Rome, slaves were not seen as people in the way we think of today. Legally, they were res things, objects, like a chair or a cart. A master could, at least in theory, sell them, punish them, or even kill them. And that's where the phrase, power without limits, comes from. Imagine being owned in such a complete way that even your life wasn't yours to control. Now, here's the twist. Even in this harsh system, cracks began to appear. Take the story of Pedanius Secundus, a Roman prefect. When one of his household slaves murdered him, the Senate debated whether all 400 of his slaves should be executed, a terrifying law of collective punishment. The public was horrified. Crowds gathered, shouting, begging the Senate to show mercy. They failed. The slaves were killed. But the uproar revealed something important. Roman society was beginning to wrestle with the question of whether unlimited power was truly just. Or consider the writings of Seneca, a Stoic philosopher. He warned masters to treat slaves with kindness, saying, "They are slaves, but they are also men." Seneca wasn't a revolutionary. He still owned slaves, but his words planted a seed. Even the elite could sense that cruelty without limits eventually corrodes the soul of the master as much as the body of the slave. Here's where I want to pause and reflect with you. If you think about your own life, you've probably seen moments when someone had too much power over others at work, in politics, maybe even in families. At first, that power can look strong, impressive, untouchable. But history, from Rome to today, keeps reminding us, unchecked power always collapses under its own weight. So what's the small lesson here? It's this. Dignity is not a luxury. It's a human necessity. The Romans tried to erase it from millions of lives. And yet, even in their world, the idea of dignity kept slipping through the cracks, through protests, through philosophy, through whispers of mercy. Now you might be wondering, if the system was so cruel, how did people survive inside it? Was there any hope for connection, for family, for freedom? Surprisingly, yes. The cracks were wider than you might think. Some slaves built families, some managed money of their own, and a few even walked the long road to freedom. And that brings us to the next part of our journey. In part 2, we'll step into those cracks. How family, money, and even the Roman obsession with dignity created unexpected opportunities for those at the bottom of the ladder. 2. Cracks in the system. Family, money, and unexpected freedoms. When we picture Roman slavery, it's easy to imagine only chains and endless labor. And yes, that was a daily reality for millions. But if you look closer, you'll find cracks in the system, tiny openings where human spirit pushed back. Let's start with family. Legally, slaves in Rome could not marry. Their unions were called contubernium, which literally means sharing the same roof. No official recognition, no legal protection. A master could sell the husband, the wife, or the children at any moment. And yet, people still fell in love. They raised children. They celebrated together in little gatherings after long days of work. Picture a mother secretly carving her child's name on a clay shard, knowing it might be all that remains if the family was torn apart. There's one story of a slave woman in Pompeii who lived in such a union for years. Her master eventually granted her and her partner freedom, and in her tombstone inscription, she proudly recorded not her status as freedwoman, but her role as wife and mother. Even without legal permission, the human need to belong to love could not be erased. Then comes money, or what the Romans called peculium. Imagine this. You're enslaved, but your master lets you manage a small sum of money. Maybe you keep tips from errands, or profits from a little stall you run on the side. Legally, that money still belonged to your master. But in practice, many allowed their slaves to save it. Why? Because a motivated slave could be more productive than a hopeless one. Some slaves saved enough to buy their freedom. Others used peculium to help family members or even bribe officials. But it was risky. A master could seize it all at any moment. Still, for some, peculium was a lifeline. It gave hope, and with hope came the strength to endure another day. And here's where Roman pride, what they called dignitas, played an odd role. Masters cared deeply about their honor and reputation. A cruel master might look strong in private, but in public, if he was known for excessive brutality, it could tarnish his standing. This social pressure sometimes gave slaves leverage. Treat them too badly, and whispers would spread. In a culture obsessed with appearances, even the powerful had to tread carefully. So, what's the lesson hidden here? Systems of control are never as airtight as they appear. People always find cracks to slip through, whether it's love, savings, or reputation. Dignity has a way of resurfacing, even when laws try to bury it. Think about your own life. Have you ever been in a situation where the rules felt unshakable, but you discovered a loophole, a workaround, a small act of defiance that gave you breathing room? That's what Roman slaves did every day. They carved out spaces of humanity inside an inhuman system. And those cracks mattered. They didn't topple slavery overnight, but they created the groundwork for something bigger, the possibility of freedom itself, which leads us to the final part of our journey. Because if cracks can exist inside a system of total control, what happens when those cracks widen? What happens when individuals manage to step through them and generations begin to see the world differently? In Part 3, we'll explore the ripple effects, how small acts of resilience can echo through history, and what they might mean for us today. 3. Echoes for today. What ancient Rome teaches you about power. So what do these cracks in Roman slavery mean for us today? At first glance, it might feel like just another distant history lesson. But if we lean in, the echoes are hard to ignore. Rome teaches us that power, no matter how absolute it looks, always carries limits. A master could command life and death, yet he still worried about dignitas, his public image. Families were torn apart by law, yet love still found a way. Money meant to control slaves sometimes became their ticket out. Even the tightest chains had weak links. Think about movements you've witnessed in your own lifetime. Civil rights in the 1,960 seconds. Women stepping into workplaces once closed to them. Even labor unions fighting for safer conditions. Each started as tiny cracks, acts of courage inside rigid systems. Just like in Rome, those cracks widened until change was no longer avoidable. There's also a personal angle here. Many of us, especially as we get older, know what it feels like to live under systems we can't control. Maybe it's corporate hierarchies. Maybe it's healthcare. Maybe it's family expectations. Rome reminds us that dignity doesn't vanish just because rules say it should. We always have some agency, however small, to push back. The lesson? Don't be fooled by appearances of permanence. Injustice often hides behind ritual, tradition, or law. But history shows us time and again that people find ways to chip at it. And when they do, ripples spread further than anyone expects. So here's the invitation. As you reflect on Rome, ask yourself, where do you see cracks today? What small acts of resilience or truth-telling could echo forward for the next generation? Because our journey doesn't end in the ruins of the past. In the next video, we'll step into another moment in history, where ordinary people like you discovered extraordinary ways to bend the arc of power. And maybe, just maybe, it will spark ideas for the world we're still building together. History is never just about dusty ruins or fading inscriptions. It's about people. People who lived, struggled, and found ways to hold on to their dignity. From Roman slaves carving out families in secret to you reflecting on the cracks in today's systems, the message is clear. Power is never absolute, and resilience always leaves a mark. If this journey through ancient Rome gave you a new perspective, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our next story, another hidden chapter of history that just might echo into your own life. And I'd love to hear your voice. In the comments, share one moment in history you wish you could have witnessed or even changed. Your thoughts may inspire someone else watching right now. Together, we're not only uncovering history, we're learning how to shape the present